March. Yes, thank you. I'm going to leave the meeting because I don't like being recorded. This is the March issue of the Adot ACEC liaison committee. So welcome everybody. We can see those on that are in their own rooms with their cameras on. The camera's on at the ACEC office, but it's hard to see who is there. Are they able to introduce themselves?
Sure can.
All right, why don't you guys do that?
This is Bruce Kay with Nino and Moore. Next.
It's Carl Ober, RPA/Ardora.
All right.
And ACEC, Arizona.
Okay. And that's it? Okay.
I'm Elijah Williams, EPS Group.
Welcome, Elijah, but you're not at ACEC,
Oh,
are
I
you?
must have been ignoring you earlier.
That's okay.
Got out of order. Sorry,
No,
Steve. You
that's
can ignore
quite-
me next week.
You're fine. Anybody else that wants to introduce themselves, feel free to. We're open here. Well, it is March. What do you call a leprechaun prank? A St. Pat trick.
Oh, gosh.
Thank you. Thank you for the courteous moan, Karen.
You're welcome.
And I'm sure as engineers, you all know what March 14th is, but and I gave you a clue, but why can't you argue with pi? Because pi is irrational. Similar to many bosses, you can't argue with them because they're irrational. But pi, for you non-engineers that are on the call, you've been around engineers. I know you know that pi is 3.14159, etc. Keeps on going. It's called irrational. All right. I didn't see anybody from FHWA. Is there anybody from FHWA on the call?
Hey, hello, Tom Dietering's here.
Oh, Tom, hi. Good. Any
Hi.
announcements, Tom? Welcome.
Let me think about that. I'll get back to you.
Okay. I didn't see our state engineer on the call. Steve, any general announcements from ADOT?
So Steve, the only general announcement we have is some staffing changes. And if you haven't heard, Paul Patney has been named the MPD director. So that was probably in effect for the last 2 weeks internally, but maybe you guys have heard it. So it's Paul Patney from our Southwest District, longtime ADOT employee. He'll do a great job at MPD.
Yes, he will. And congratulations to him. So are there 2 district administrator positions that are opening, or is he just going to cover those as well?
So those are still open, and Matt Mole is trying to fill both of those, Steve. And I think the requisition is closed, so we should be interviewing and filling those very soon. But the intent is to fill those positions.
Was it internal only?
For the MPD position?
No, for the district administrators.
No, those are totally open.
Oh man, I missed my chance. They're
Well,
closed now though.
If you give Mr. Mole a call, we can always extend it if you're seriously considering Mr. Jimenez.
Well, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and get started with the reason most of you joined. We've got 2 speakers to talk about our primary presentation today, but we also have a bonus afterwards. Bobby Richards was born in Utah, grew up in Chandler. While going to ASU to earn his bachelor's and master's degrees in construction engineering, he worked as an intern at ADOT. Then he joined ADOT's EIT program and is now an interim resident engineer in the Santan field office with a total of 9 years with ADOT. Robbie enjoys sports and family. TC Fish was born in Flagstaff and raised in Joseph City, Arizona. He also earned his engineering degree at ASU, then worked 2 years as a designer in the private sector. He then joined ADOT's EIT program and worked there for 5 years. In 2019, he and his wife started Civil Solutions Engineering and Management. It's based in Joseph City. TC enjoys family, kids, sports, and outdoors. The outdoors both. We're going to talk about the ongoing project on State Route 24 in the Southeast Valley. After that, Steve and Tony Castleman are going to give a little update, or at least let us know what bills are in the state legislature. And when that time comes, I'll let Steve introduce Tony. So Robbie, go ahead and take it away.
Appreciate it, Steve. TC, you there as well?
I am here.
All righty. Well, thanks for letting us present today. It's a topic I'm sure everybody's interested in. TC and I both work on the SR24 freeway, or as it'll be known, the Gateway Freeway once it's officially opened. This is phase 2 of the freeway. Julie Gatsby worked on phase 1 about 10 years ago when they opened the first mile from the TI. Our project is taking place from Ellsworth Road to Ironwood Drive. Appreciate the introduction. We're going to get started with a little video here just to kind of give a project overview, and then TC is going to dive into some details. Everyone here? We are in Mesa right now. We're actually on the edge of Mesa, and this is where the beginning of the new portion of the SR24 freeway is going to be starting. The existing SR24 freeway is back towards the Santan 202. The joke is it actually is the shortest freeway in the system currently at just under a mile. We're going to be adding on 5 miles starting here at Ellsworth, going east to the Ironwood Drive. So from Ellsworth Road to Ironwood Drive, and there's a few major intersections in the entirety of the run. So the project started back in November 20th of 2020. It was scoped for 630 days, calendar days. So the contract is going to be done on August 11th of 2022. Currently we're on project schedule, so that's a good thing. Hopefully you're going to start to see the finishing touches coming here in the spring and the summertime, so that once we get to that August date, everything's going to be taken care of. Essentially what we have here is the interim condition of the freeway. So what that means is we're actually going to only be having 2 lanes eastbound and 2 lanes westbound. The full condition, or the ultimate condition of the freeway, is going to be 3 lanes with 1 HOV, but that's going to be completed and widened out when there's future funding with a future project. Essentially what we have here, once this project is completed next year, is going to be a series of mainline and ramps. So traffic is actually going to go on mainline, and it's going to go on and off ramps through the major intersections. The future projects will add freeway mainline and bridges once we get there. So as everybody knows, this entire area of City of Mesa, Queen Creek, even all the way down to Santan Valley, is absolutely exploding in terms of population. So the 2 major routes in and out right now are just Ellsworth Road and Ironwood Road, Ironwood Drive, I should say. We're going to be getting an east-west flow through this area, and so what we're doing is we're increasing the capacity so that people are able to get around better, to not only businesses but their homes, residences, anywhere people need to be getting to. We want to be able to get them there safely and as quickly as possible. Just want to thank our graphics team for putting that together.
Yes, sir. All right. Just real quick on the project overview. As Robbie stated in the video there, we have 630 calendar days. Adot is the owner of this, the prime contractor. So it was a design bid build project. Was F&F was the low bid, and Stanley Consultants was our designer for the project. The project was bid at $77 million. As Robbie stated, this is the interim condition of the freeway. Basically, we're building one of the TIs at Ellsworth, and then the remaining 4, which will occur at Williamsfield, Signal Butte, Meridian, and Ironwood. Those will be built in the future, and the mainline traffic will be pushed out onto the ramps. They'll come to an intersection, each of those for the time being, kind of like they did out on the 303. So that'll be built in the future for the ultimate build out, and then the project is 5 miles long.
All right, moving on. Just wanted to show you guys a typical section. So as we mentioned, it's just going to have those 2 lanes, east and westbound, with an outside and an inside shoulder. We're going to have curb on the outside shoulders, and the inside is going to be graded dirt just to the edge of pavement. So we'll be widening out to the future in the median, where we can add that additional general purpose lane and HOV lane and get the barrier in. But for right now, this is what it's going to look like. We've just got large infields between the eastbound and westbound sides of the road. There's a large drainage channel on the north side of the project, as you guys can see on the left side of the typical section there. The east half of the project, it's concrete lined on the slopes and on the bottom. And on the west side of the project, the drainage channel actually widens out quite significantly. So we've got concrete lining on the slopes, but it's just an earthen bottom. So it's a pretty cool feature to be able to see such a large drainage channel, and then how all the dirt had to move on this project to be able to get the project built. TC and I thought it would be helpful to have just kind of like a project overview from a plan view. Stanley was kind enough to provide a roll plot, which we've got plastered up in our field office right now. It helps us kind of identify where we're at on the project. But just kind of starting from the west side, you can see that existing 202 SR24 TI. That's where the original SR24 was built, and that's where our project starts essentially. Outlined in blue are some of the drainage features around Ellsworth. So we've got some basins and then that channel on the north side. A key point of this project was to make sure that the Ellsworth bridges were built out to the full conditions, or the ultimate condition, I should say. So even though we're only going to be striping them for 2 lanes, their full width is built out so that as soon as the rest of the project, or the rest of the SR24 widens out to 4 lanes, we can just restripe those bridges so as not to impact Ellsworth Road. Traffic control at Ellsworth has been a big part of this project. And I don't know how many of you live out in the far east and southeast valley, but I didn't know how many people lived out there until we really got some traffic control going down. Another interesting part of this project was to the west side of Ellsworth there. There's a large basin that we actually had to fill in. So it was 20 feet below grade. In order to get the desired elevation, we had to bring it up 30 feet above grade. So this was definitely a borrow job. There was almost 300 yards of borrow on the job. And overall, I think we had to move about 600 to 700,000 cubic yards into that basin to be able to get the elevation needed for the bridges. So we're going to keep moving to the east. So this is just a plan view of Williamsfield to Mountain Road. As TC mentioned, in the white, you can see at Williamsfield and at Signal Butte, those are going to be the future mainline sections that are going to get added, as well as the overpass bridges. All we have right now is basically just 2 on and off ramps at each intersection. Even though this graphic doesn't show it, Williamsfield is definitely developed for the crossroad. So on the west side, we've got the Legacy Sports Park. And on the east side, it takes you to Crisman Road, and there's several communities that have already been put in there. We can go over Crisman. 222nd gets cut off. It was just a halfway street where you've got just some residences. So we've got cul-de-sac on each side there, and then Signal Butte, which is currently in development on the north and the south side by City of Mesa. They're working on getting actually everything tied in. We're pretty excited about that. I think their project is supposed to be done later this year, just shortly after we open up our freeway in August. So moving on to Mountain Road to Ironwood. I mentioned Ellsworth was built out to the full condition because Mountain Road actually wasn't. There wasn't enough project funding or essentially need at this point in time to build Mountain out. So Mountain's only 2 lanes, 2-lane bridge in each direction. So in the future, they're going to have to widen it out. Then we come to Meridian, which currently has construction on the south side. So the south side is going to be tied in. Right now, the north side, there's no plans in place. So we actually just berm it off and it's a dead end. I'm sure as soon as it gets finished up, there's going to be movement on that side though. And then going all the way over to Ironwood, as I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, that's the other main access point in and out of this region right now. And then SR24 will just continue west from there. So I'll let TC take it over.
All righty, here's the overview. This was our baseline schedule back in November of 2020. I won't bore you with all the details, but basically the contractor proposed to build from east to west. So we started at Ironwood Drive. The critical thing at Ironwood Drive, obviously Ironwood and Ellsworth being the main corridors into Queen Creek, Santan Valley, Pinell County out there. There was a stipulation in our contract. I think we had 180 days to build the entirety of Ironwood. So that was a big thing there. We actually had to work with Steve Boshin on some stuff there. We had 1 lane in each direction and it created quite the bottleneck, and we were able to work it out with everybody and add 1 extra lane. We didn't have enough space to add 2 in each direction, but we were able to add 1 extra lane to the heading to the north to help free up traffic in the morning for the morning commute. But the contractor basically they're building from Ironwood to Ellsworth. About the time we hit Signal Butte, Legacy Sports Complex came into play and really changed our plans. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a minute. But basically, we had to flip all of our resources and start building from Ellsworth back towards Signal Butte to get that opened early because of the I guess political pressure. I'll just say that political pressure to get that open a little bit. But from the beginning of the project to Williamsville. One of the other restrictions, one of the other issues we've had is just rain, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We had a 4-inch rain event that really put a kink in things, but we will talk about that here in just a minute. But overall, the schedule's on time. We've been ahead of schedule the entirety of the project. Right now, we're scheduled about a month ahead of time to finish up. And we should be seated out in July as of right now. Obviously, the critical path's changed a few times as we've gone through. Basically, now our critical path runs through that drainage channel on the north side of the project, and it is moving along smoothly, actually, believe it or not. So we've been pleased with the schedule, and this is ADOT's first project with our new scheduling spec, and it's been very helpful to us as there's some things in our contract language that allow us to have a little firmer grip on the schedule, and it's been really good, and actually I think it's helped us keep us on schedule and ahead of schedule. So that's it for the schedule though, Robbie.
Sounds good. All right, jump into Williamsfield Road expedited. So this is kind of what you all, I'm sure, have heard about, but we've got a portion of the freeway that is actually doing an early open. So basically between the beginning of the project and Williamsfield, we're going to have that portion of the freeway substantially complete and open as of April 1st. The original date was, I believe, March 19th, but we've had some rain since between making that agreement and now, which has pushed it out to April 1st, but we're about a month out right now, and this is go time. We're going to be getting everything, all the signs up, all the striping ready to open and essentially create a secondary access for Legacy Sports Park. So I'll kind of start back. In August, City of Mesa and Legacy Sports Park requested that the department have the construction of the SR24 expedited, essentially to help coincide with the opening of the Legacy Sports Park, also now known as Bell Bank. Because right now Ellsworth is the only in and out. And in addition, we also had to work with the city of Mesa significantly, as well as different departments of ADOT, in order to be able to get this done in such a quick manner, especially during construction. So it's really what I want to emphasize on is how much coordination and communication all the way up to Boshin's and state engineers level, all the way up to the director level at City of Mesa, it took to be able to get this project expedited for this particular section, and also to ensure that we're going to be able to have the contractor deliver on this. Because as TC mentioned, F&F started from the east side of the job and was working their way towards the west. So they actually had to take all their resources and essentially just move them to the west side of the job, which interrupted their schedule and created some inefficiencies. And essentially due to those inefficiencies, the total change order amount ended up amounting to $1.2 million. Originally, I think Legacy was wanting the sports park, the Williams Field opening to be closer to January. But as we got closer and the agreement wasn't officially made until the end of October, F&F committed to that March deadline, which has been now extended to April 1st. But again, I just want to, focus on how much of the communication it took to be able to get this done. And just thank
Robbie, I might interject here just to make sure everybody knows the funding came from the city of Mesa and the Legacy Sports Complex. I know the FHWA is on here. I don't want Tom thinking he's participating in this. So
yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. Yeah, it was $600,000 from each. And I know TC will say this is the quickest change order I think we've ever sent out that went all the way up our hierarchy here at ADOT. So but yeah, there was no really additional scope. It was just a change in schedule and the inefficiencies that were created. So we'd be happy to answer some questions kind of at the end of the presentation on this though.
All righty. One of the biggest things, and for me being a Northern Arizona native, and I continue to live in Northern Arizona, I've done quite a few jobs down the valley, but a job of this size is just really, been coordination with stakeholders. We've been in constant contact with City of Mesa, Town of Queen Creek, Maricopa County, Pinell County, and all have been great to work with. Actually, they've been very helpful and actually quick on response times. The thing I'd like to talk a little bit about today is the Adot permits and the residential communities. It has been incredible to see as we progress with this. Most of the dirt adjacent to the freeway has either been sold or got into the hands of developers. And we've just seen a huge flow of permits. So that requires time on our behalf to review these permitting plans, and then also make sure we're tying in. And we've actually I know I saw Elijah Williams on here. We worked with EPS and some stuff for an adjacent development. It's been nice though. I think that for the most part, we've been able to get ahead of the game and get some of these drainage things. Most of it's just drainage tie-ins from some of these developments. And actually, I appreciate that. So when we get done with the project, we're not saw cutting and digging and putting in new drainage features on a brand new freeway system. So it's been a very good, very fast pace. We appreciate all of the entities that we've worked with, and they've been good to work with, and for the most part, and we've been able to accomplish a bunch, I think. Obviously, one difficult thing is as always in construction seems like is utilities, getting utilities to the project, as well as moving utilities that are currently on the project. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we talk about some of our challenges. Talking about utilities, so we've had it's been a challenge. We're still moving utilities to this day. I think we just moved some last week, and that should be our last move of utilities. We've had multiple, it's just a big challenge getting, SRP, CenturyLink to get them out there and move. They were supposed to be moved in November of 2020, and here we are in March of 2022 and still moving utilities. But I think we got them all moved, some in unconventional ways and some in conventional ways. So we actually, one of our contractor service trucks hit a power pole, and that actually, it was supposed to be moved before the project, and it was right where one of our box culverts was at in Meridian. And we actually got it moved that way, and I think the power pole would still be there today if it hadn't been accidentally hit. So that was kind of a funny thing. You can see over to the right, we had a weather event in July of 2021 that severely impacted the project. We actually had a 4-inch rain event, and you can see the rain gauge there full. It was completely full, and severely impacted our job. And you see some of the pictures there. That's just one picture of an area that was eroded, and it wasn't necessarily the rain that fell on our job site. If you look at this picture, all the sheet flow comes from the north to the south, and we had a huge amount of off-flow water just flowing onto our job, and it really it destroyed our project, and it took some challenges. We were able to work with the FHWA, and we appreciated them working with us and be able to get some of this put back together. It's all together now, and we're moving forward. I'll let Robbie take the environmental monitoring.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and we just want to, like we said, thank Tom, because we worked with him heavily, and I believe we started storm repairs at the end of July, and at TC, correct me if I'm wrong, we were working on them for the better part of the next 6 months, because F&F was supposed to, they still got to build the job, but they got all this additional stuff that's got to be repaired at the same time. So it ended up being definitely a nice thing to be able to work with FHWA and get federal funding. So moving to environmental monitoring, we brought this up. We're bringing this up as one of the challenges just because of how large this job is. Like we talked about, it's 5 miles from end to end. Environmental Planning Group, they identified 6 cultural sensitivity areas prior to the beginning of this job that were essentially going to have full-time monitoring while there's any sort of excavation going on, just in case they saw some artifact or there was something that they needed to recover. Knowing what we know now, I think Tisa and I probably would both agree that it's important to get everybody on the same page from the get-go, not only contractor and Adot, but also whatever firm is representing the environmental. So in this case, it was ACEC. Our special provisions don't necessarily give us all the information that ACEC provided to us as far as what the requirements were for this environmental monitoring. So especially for a job like this, where the entire job had to be over excavated 2 foot down, and in some areas 3 foot down from the get-go, which was one of the first things F&F started, all the way to trenching throughout the job for pipes or excavating the drainage channel. We had to have monitors watching it all, essentially, and that kind of coordination is that's what we pay the contractors to project manage. And so we had to have several meetings just on site to be able to get all 3 parties on the same page, just to be able to, hey, every day, where are you guys going to be at? What zone are you going to be at? Are you moving out of this zone? Are you moving into this zone? So just want to thank everybody for working through the issues that we had earlier on in the job, because again, you just never know what you're going to find with a job like this, but I'm happy to say we were successful in getting a process in place even just a few months after the project started, and we haven't really had any hiccups since then. So just touching on budget was one of those things that can run up pretty quickly. So being able to identify how much monitoring was actually needed, I think that was probably one of the biggest things TC would agree with. Just understanding like what was the actual requirement for monitoring. Do we need 5 monitors in one area, or could one monitor watch multiple areas? But yeah. And then moving on to concurrent work, we've kind of touched on this for the most part, but just having such an active construction zone for the freeway is, it's busy enough, but then we have these tie-ins on either side of the crossroads. We've got all this residential construction. Legacy Sports Park was in full blast, shortly after we started SR24. Just having a lot of concurrent work took definite coordination. We're constantly working with the city of Mesa, especially to make sure, hey, can we have this traffic control set up? Because, Legacy had some closures, we had some closures, but just making sure that, we're not driving through each other's job sites or being respectful of, just the nature of, how quick paced and how quickly things can change on jobs like this. So I think that's all we wanted to touch on. Project challenges. There were plenty, but these are some of the ones that we'd highlight. There's TC's information and my information. If you guys need to get in touch with us or have any questions, like we said, we're excited. We're on schedule and we're going to be opening this thing up. We'll have to talk with Boshin, see if we're going to do some sort of grand opening for SR24. Not sure where we're at with that, but yeah, you guys have any questions?
Robbie, it's Adam Brown. I got a question for you and TC. You mentioned your rain event and the offsite drainage onto the 24 alignment. Was that actually addressed in final design and you just didn't have to implement the improvements yet to direct it where you want it to go? How is that going to work out when the freeway finally opens?
That's a great question. Yeah, we were in the midstream of doing the drainage work. And one of the challenges is there was a couple of cross streets where we could not build the box culverts. We had to leave the cross street closed for access while we built it. So like 222nd, we had to leave that in and we couldn't dig that and put the box culvert in it before we did the bridge at Mountain. So we had the detour traffic. So we had a lot of these in there that were blocking our drainage channel. And we did learn a lot from that, Adam, and we actually did make some design corrections. And we've had a few 2-inch rain events since, and everything's actually held up really nicely. So yeah, a little bit of both. We were halfway there, and then also made some corrections. I know at Ironwood at the beginning of the job, that was all complete. And the erosion was unbelievable. And we actually had to implement some extra design there, and it's held up very nicely since we've made some changes there. So,
we worked hand in hand with the designer throughout this job just for issues like that, because, things come up and it's like, what are we going to do here? This isn't just some, quick fix. At that point in time, when we had that rain event, Adam, we had started a portion of the channel, but since we were building from east to west, we were actually building upstream. So all the water that came in, got into the channel, just ended up going to wherever we had stopped at that point with the channel, and just ended up also flooding out. So that's a lessons learned, probably, build with the way the water flows in terms of drainage. And also we've got a small riprap V-ditch channel on the north side of the channel that is also it's supposed to help kind of divert some of the sheet flow and not just directly flow into the channel. At that point in time, we also didn't have the channel slopes line, so it just lots of erosion and reeling and stuff like that. So
looks like Steve has a question there.
I was going to ask if anybody had questions. Anybody else have a question? I do have one, but I'll let others go first. How many environmental monitors did you have? What was the most you had at any given time?
I believe 4. We've had 4 in one day, but it was, the dollar amount severely exceeded what they had budgeted. It's actually crazy. So
It looks like Mr. Boshin has his hand up.
Oh yes, go ahead, Steve.
Thanks, Amerigo. I just wanted to thank Robbie and TC for doing this presentation. They said a bunch of references to Boshin. These guys did it all. I may have been consulted, but they did it all. When we had the issues about, traffic backing up on Ironwood, they audibilized and came up with a solution. What they didn't tell you, some other challenges we had when we detoured traffic around, they had folks throwing nails out onto roads. And one of those was where the box culvert wasn't built. And this is people that didn't like all the traffic going through. So there was a lot of other challenges they didn't talk about. The legacy was a huge one. They did hit us. Typical developer calling us up saying, hey, can you accelerate this by 6 months? We're like going, this is an active construction project. You're serious. They're starting from the east. And we worked through that. And these guys really responded to audibles very well. So I just wanted to thank them. That's all.
Thank you, Steve.
Appreciate it.
Steve, Eric Froberg has a question. that he put in the chat. So it says, great presentation and project. Is the intent to someday have SR 24 connect to the US 60?
So
You want-
I'll answer.
Go ahead, Steve. I was gonna say, no, I don't think it's supposed to tie to 60. It goes east, west, and eventually I believe there's a north-south corridor out there that it will tie into, but I'll let Steve answer that question.
So Eric, it does depend on who you're talking to. There is a desire for it to connect to 60. And a lot of that is based on what Pinal County would like to do. Right now, they would like it to connect to north-south and really move the circulation around. But yeah, there are plans to get it to 60 eventually.
The original plan was to not put bridges over Ellsworth Road and keeping it on the ramps. I think from construction, would you agree that it was wise and for ADOT to go ahead and add those bridges and to make a complete traffic interchange?
The we only added the bridge at Ellsworth, I believe is what you're talking about. So there still needs to be a project to add the interchanges at those other 4 locations, so that those will not be built out as part of this project.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, that was a big part of our Ellsworth construction, was just getting that grade built up. Because like you said, when we talked with Gary, they wouldn't have dug a basin there 10 years ago and used that fill for some of the 202 TI had they known that we were going to build it as an overpass. So that definitely contributed to some of the cost of construction.
And going out on a limb here in front of everybody, did the prime designers Stanley are they providing a good service to you construction people?
You're setting me up. No, we've actually really enjoyed working with Gary. Gary's been awesome. I know you had mentioned that this project was actually supposed to be a subgrade freeway, and to what I've been told by Stanley is, I think it was at 80 or so percent plans, 90% plans that they actually switched it to at grade. So there was a lot of changes that happened at the very end of the design, which obviously imposed some challenges that we had to deal with. But for the most part, we've been very grateful for working with Gary.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. There's other comments in the chat, but we'll hit those after Steve and Tony give us an idea of the types of bills that are in our state legislature. So Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Sounds good. I just need someone else to stop sharing so I can share ours. Steve, can you see that?
Yes.
All right. So first I want to introduce Anthony Castleman. He works in our government relations office. And as some of you ex-ADOT people know, he does not get hazard pay, but he has to work every day with the legislature. So he has a monumental job. We're going to do a tag team approach. I'm going to kind of talk about what the bill is. He's going to talk about what kind of where it's at in terms of the sausage making. So first bill is Senate Bill 23 or 1239, widen I-10. That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it? So this is 400 million. It's actually 2 bills that are going both in the House and the Senate. Tony, you want to kind of talk about it real quick? Hey, Tony, your audio's not working.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Perfect, Tony.
All right, sorry about that. Yeah, no, this one, as we kind of expected, didn't get a lot of pushback. It passed the committee unanimously, passed out of the Senate pretty much unanimously. I think the one no vote was Senator Ugenti Rita, who's pretty much going to vote no on any appropriation bill that's out there. So it's going over to the House. It'll be heard in House Transportation and Appropriations. But I think, the one thing I would just highlight that I usually highlight for our internal folks is that at some point, all of these bills with money attached to them are going to die. They never really move as standalone bills. They'll be wrapped into the budget discussions, and then they'll move as part of the budget bills. They typically do not pass a bill with money attached unless they have an agreement for the budget in totality. So they'll stop at some point. That doesn't mean that this isn't going to be included in the budget. So
Tony, they kind of die to live another day, correct?
correct. And obviously with this one being in the executive budget proposal, that will be definitely be a discussion when the budget talks start to happen.
So this next sheet is kind of like a description of what, would be included if there was 400 million, which is what the executive is recommending, 400 million for I-10. That still leaves us with a gap. A lot of that is funded with MAG, but we would still be looking for grants, and obviously BILJA or the bill grant opportunities that are coming out are something that we will be chasing to do this. So this would be awesome to have 26 miles of I-10 done. That is our goal. And again, there's a big emphasis on it, both the executive and a House bill and a Senate bill. Next is 2396, and that's just Greater Arizona projects. It's a total of 50 million for 36 projects. They're both state and local. Representative Dunn is sponsoring it. Where's it at, Tony?
So yeah, this one actually died. It did run into some trouble in the transfer. I know the vote doesn't necessarily reflect that it had some trouble, but I was there for the hearing, and it did run into some issues. I think there were some members that were a little bit uncomfortable about having 36 infrastructure projects in one bill and not really knowing a ton of details about what those projects are. Having said that, this proposal came from RTAC, the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council. So I do think that there's going to be some discussions about at least some of these projects when the budget rolls around. But I don't know that I don't know if they'll consider it in totality, if they'll just consider it, each of the projects individually. There's 32 local projects, which we would distribute the money for, and then 4 projects on the state system. So
that one dead pretty much. House Bill 2728 is tier 2 studies for 3 corridors, total of 58 million. As you guys that have done environmental studies before, you will not get a signature unless you have construction funding. So yes, we can move forward with doing these tier 2 studies, but there won't be a environmental document at the end of the day. A lot of the background work will be done, but it will have to start again once construction funding is identified. Where's the progress at, Tony?
yeah, again, this one didn't face a ton of opposition. It'll go over to the Senate, probably get one more hearing in the Senate, and then it'll stop there. Yeah, I think we've had some challenges trying to educate members on the tier 2 study or I guess the EIS study process in general. It's complicated, and so we're still working on trying to make sure that they have all the information in front of them to make the best decisions possible. So
next one is 2884, and that's SR 24 and CAP Parkway right of way. Again, it's an appropriation or proposed appropriation of 15 million, and that would preserve the right of way on both the extension of the 24 corridor to the question earlier and the CAP Parkway right of way. Tony, where are we at?
yeah, again, very similar to the last bill, passed unanimously out of committee, then passed out of the House pretty much unanimously. And again, it'll probably get another hearing in the Senate, and then it'll stop there.
Okay, 1192 Senate bill, add a 4th lane to a job that we're currently working on. So that's I-10 SR 85 to Citrus. And is this the one that I messed up? No, it's not. Never mind. That's Jackrabbit. So the amount's 59.6 with some money from Buckeye and 10 million from MAG. It's Senator David Livingston that is proposing this. And Tony, you want to give us an update?
Yeah, this one passed again out of the committee and the chamber unanimously. It'll go over to the House and get a hearing. Had some discussions with Senator Livingston about this just to make sure he fully understood the process here. I think he does have an understanding that this, obviously can't be part of the current project. It's going to have to be a separate bid and be a totally separate project. And I'm really glad that he understood that, because I think there was some concern. The money for this one is appropriated in fiscal year 2022, which is a little bit odd. I guess with the budget surplus that they had in the previous years, he's thinking that he can get this money from this current fiscal year. I don't know if that's gonna work exactly, but we'll see.
As you can see, we do have challenges with communication to some of our legislative members who thought they could just change order this into a current project. How would you like that for a change order, TC and Robbie?
No fun.
If I were the designer, I would love it as a change order.
I bet. Anyway, Senate Bill 1193, this is pretty controversial. ADOT is neutral on this. It's 101 and 16th Street. And this is where the data public knowledge comes into play for any of you designers that have been here before. We don't mitigate if there's nothing there or if it's zoned commercial. After the freeway started, the zoning changed and it became a residential use, which meant that, if it had been done before the data public knowledge, there would be mitigation. So we are not friends with the sponsor here. I know Tony's tried his best to communicate, but he doesn't think ADOT's worth the damn. But they are moving forward with an appropriation, and we're calling it a screen wall because it is not a sound wall in our technical terms. It would not qualify for federal funding. So this has to be a GF appropriation. The fear of both ADOT and MAG is this proliferates on the entire system and we have haves and have-nots. So Tony, you want to give the progress on the bill that we are neutral on?
Yeah, again, this one didn't face a ton of challenges, and I don't expect it to face a ton of challenges moving forward. I think the proponents of the bill, they go in there and they tell a pretty good story about it. We've had some conversations with Senator Boyer about it. I think for the most part, it's really the community behind. So Luna Azul is the community that was permitted after the data public knowledge. It's really the community just to the south of them that is pushing for this. And they actually didn't qualify for noise mitigation because they didn't reach the sound thresholds. So you got a couple different communities in different situations that didn't qualify for the sound wall. Obviously, like Steve said, Senator Boyer, not too happy about that. We've tried to explain the process to him. I don't know if he just doesn't agree or he doesn't think that we're doing our due diligence here, but he went ahead and moved forward with the bill. I do think this is going to get some traction in the budget discussions. And I think my gut, again, this is just my gut instinct. I can't tell you what's going to go into the budget and what's not, but I think my gut instinct tells me this will probably be included as a budget item.
Okay, next one is House Bill 2562, a roundabout at US 89 and North Lake Powell Boulevard in Page, amount to $5 million. Where are we at now, Tony?
Yeah, this one died too. So it got double assigned to transportation and appropriations. If you're familiar at all with the legislative process, getting a hearing in House appropriations with Representative Cobb as the chairwoman can be a little bit difficult for some of these appropriation bills. This is, I think, the third year in a row this one's been run. It doesn't tend to make a ton of progress. So again, the fact that it's sort of stopped at this point in the process is not super surprising to me. I think it's stopped at a similar point in the last 2 years as well.
Okay, House Bill 2600, Loop 101 slip ramp. Me and Ray Medrano have talked about this before. It is not a slip ramp. It's actually a $25 million directional ramp, which would go southbound from 101 to 91st. And it would be done when we redo that TI, the I-10 101 TI. The representative sponsoring it is Espinoza. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, this one, again, a lot of these appropriation bills aren't going to face a ton of opposition. I think people will vote no or will vote yes, knowing that eventually they're not going to continue to move forward. Yeah, this one's being pushed by the city of Tolleson. They're typically the ones who will go stand in front of the committee and advocate for this money. I have a hard time thinking this one's going to get included as a budget item, but I've seen crazier things down there.
So the history behind this is there's really no identity from 101 to get to Tolleson. If you ever think about it, the only identity they have is you have to get off at McDowell Road and then get over to 91st. They do consider 91st to be their entry to Tolleson, so this would be a benefit to the community. So I see where they're coming from. Oh, my favorite, Senate Bill 1525, Median Barrier Study Committee. So the summary is this establishes a 15-member interstate and its cable median barrier expansion study committee. I did have to go to this with Katie Proctor. It's tough because the people that go to, testify, so to speak, are people that have lost loved ones. So we're always in a lose-lose situation here. If this goes through, we could have what happened almost 20, 25 years ago and start putting up barriers of some sort on perfectly fine interstates. So Ocean is personally opposed to this. ADOT is neutral to this. I want to make it clear. ADOT's neutral, but I have made my position pretty clear that wide, clear medians are way safer than putting more people in harm's way by putting up more hazards. And that's what barriers are. I better shut up now and let Tony talk.
Yeah, it got out of the committee unanimously. Again, not a surprise when you've got people there testifying about, losing loved ones. I think it was a pretty easy vote for a lot of the members. We do have some concerns with the language. I think they're focused on cable median barriers, which I've had numerous discussions with Steve that's first off, that's not always the best option to have a cable barrier. And secondly, I think it's not the best option to have a barrier in general. So we've been talking with staff and the sponsor about potentially amending the language to, a median safety study committee, something a little bit different so that they make sure they're considering all options. There was a $10 million appropriation that was attached to the bill, but it was removed in a committee amendment. And I think one of the other interesting things about this bill is as part of that 15-member interstate committee they've actually added folks who have been affected by fatalities from cross median crashes, which, I hesitate with that because I don't know that that's the best way for us to make engineering decisions, is to have, people who are emotionally invested. So a couple of concerns with the language. I think it's ultimately going to move as just a study committee. And we'll kind of see what happens. Hopefully some of the language about them making recommendations about where cable median barriers will be removed as well. I'm not sure you want to have a committee of this makeup making those recommendations. So we'll see what happens, but we are working on some potential amendments to that.
All right, and finally, the one that everybody on this call is very interested in, House Bill 2598, Senate Bill 1356. That's the Prop 400E extension. And as you all know, this is something that MAG is pushing forward. ADOT is the technical advisor to implement this if it's passed. Obviously, it's got two sponsors, Representative Carroll and Senator Pace. You want to run us through where it's at, Tony? And then I know Justin can also provide her perspective, but why don't you go first, Tony?
Yeah, just for some of the folks on the call that maybe don't have as much background on the legislative process, if I'm repeating information that you already know, I apologize. But the reason that this one's got two bills and two different sponsors is what they're trying to do is run what's called mirror bills. So if they just have mirror bills in the House and in the Senate, what they can do is run those together, and then they don't have to swap and go over to the other chamber and go through the same process again. So it's a way of essentially getting your bill up to the governor's office quicker. So they do have mirror bills. Technically right now, they're not mirror bills. 2598 in the House was amended pretty heavily. So that language looks a little bit different than the Senate bill. I think the goal for them is to get that language the same. And then again, once they pass out of each of their respective chambers, so once the House bill passes out of the House and the Senate bill passes out of the Senate, they'll swap, they'll do a vote, and then it'll go up to the governor's office for signature. So it's been a little bit quiet on the Prop 400 extension front, at least from what I'm hearing. Again, they went through committee and I haven't heard a ton of discussion recently, but I know there's definitely some work behind the scenes on more amendments. So.
Justin, anything you wanted to share in addition to what Tony said?
Sure. So I guess I get to know how the sausage is made on this one. Yes, behind the scenes, it is definitely not quiet. As Tony mentioned, both bills remain in their respective chambers in the House and also in the Senate. The House Bill 2598 is actually, it passed the Transportation Committee. However, it is being held in rules. It actually has not even been agendized yet because the chairman of the Rules Committee is requiring at least a commitment from the Republican Party in order to a majority commitment from the Republican Party before it will even be agendized in rules. This is for an emergency clause. So that's kind of an interesting situation. I've actually never seen that. I've seen that be held before it goes to the floor, but not before it even goes to committee. So we are in a holding pattern on 2598. 1356 is not that type of a situation. It has actually made it out of rules. But at this time, we are hearing a lot of scuttlebutt from the governor's office. So the governor's office is now weighing in on what their feelings are about the Prop 400E. So the governor is at this time saying, look, I'm not going to consider anything at this point until I get my tax priorities and my water priorities done. So they're talking about a special session, which would include those two items. Obviously, the legislators are not happy about that. But at this time, 2598 and 1356 are basically just in a holding pattern until the governor gets what he wants. So that's just me being very blunt about what's going on here with 400E. So once we hear more, once the governor starts, either calls for a special session or, we start to see some movement in terms of the repeal and replace for the taxes, which also include a greater cut. And then also with his water priorities, we're just hanging tight. So that's the scuttlebutt behind the scenes on Prop 400E.
And Justin, you realize that ADOT is a technical resource on this, and we are totally neutral, and we work at the pleasure of who? You know who.
I do know who.
Okay.
And absolutely, like I said, this is strictly just lobbyist perspective. ADOT is of course neutral. However, ACEC and ASPE are working very hard to get this over the finish line and onto the ballot in November. Tony, do you have a question?
Yeah, just one more thing really quick, just sort of the exception to the rule about those appropriations bills dying, those Prop 400 extension bills would move through the entire process. I think that was already made clear, but I just wanted to clarify that because I had been saying that all those appropriation bills will die, that those two will not die. They would have to move through the whole process. So
we hope they will not die. Thanks, Tony.
That I can't tell you, but yes. I can tell you that the goal would be to get them through the entire process.
Get them over the finish line. Thanks, Tony.
All right. Any questions for Steve or Tony? Other questions? Well, thank you both for your presentations. I do have a question not related to the state legislature, but more the federal. When the infrastructure bill became law, President appointed the former mayor of New Orleans, Mitch Landrieu, to be the czar to administer anything related to that. And he has suggested to each of the 50 state governors to appoint a person to oversee their share of it. Does anybody have an idea of where Arizona is in that process?
So I'll start and Tony will do cleanup, Steve. I am aware that the executive is in the process of hiring and there might be an announcement next week. Am I correct, Tony?
Yeah, I've heard similar things. They're looking for somebody to sort of fill that role. I don't really know what the progress of that is.
So Steve, this is what I talked to Katie Proctor before she went to Washington on Friday. That's what she knew last Friday. Things changed, but the executive is actively looking to fill a position like that.
All right, good. Tony, you had your hand raised. Did you have something else? Or
no, I just need to lower my hand. I apologize. There we go.
No. All right. If there's nothing else, Justin, would you go ahead and cover the comments in the chat box? We did have a couple from FHWA, and you may have some announcements from ACEC as well.
Sure. I do see the update that was shared with us by Tom Dieterich. And he says the only FHWA update I have is that Jennifer Acuna is now with FHWA and will be replacing Eunice Chan as the area engineer for Central District. Scroll down. Jennifer will also be the FHWA point of contact for design and standards and specs. Jennifer is participating in the meeting this morning, and thank you. And then also in the chat, Carla Petty has offered up links to FHWA's Complete Streets website, if you would like to check that out. Oh, but there's Carla. Carla, would you like to speak?
Well, just wanted to explain it, Justin. So I'm sorry, I was a little bit late this morning. My other meeting ran late, and I was trying to type up a note and hit send too early. So today, FHWA is presenting a report to Congress, which details our efforts to really work towards making all roads safe for all users. And it is in this report about Complete Streets. So I offer up this website if anybody's wanting to learn more about what we're doing with Complete Streets and the Complete Streets model. It has all been posted out on that website. And the only other thing that I was going to share was with the bill implementation since the last meeting, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Formula Program guidance and fact sheets have now been released and posted on our website. So for our bill implementation, I encourage you to visit our website often, at least weekly, to see what's new and what's been released. But as Steve said, there's also the White House resources. And this week is the AASHTO briefing where they will be talking more about the bill implementation. So that's everything I have. And glad Tom had shared with you about Jennifer joining us.
Thanks, Carla. And then I do have one more thing here from our good friend Scott Sales. He says, great update. Sorry, I need to jump off, but a quick reminder that September 28th through 30th, 2022 is the ACEC Arizona Conference on Roads and Streets. Currently, our call for presentations are open. And they will be open through May 2nd. So for those interested in presenting or know someone who should present, please forward them this link. And there is a link there to our abstract submission page, which is also on our website. And or you can also call Amerigo or myself. You guys have our cell phone numbers. Or there's also Scott's cell phone number as well. Since he's not here, feel free to write on a bathroom wall somewhere if you like. Anyway, I hope that we'll see you at Roads and Streets in September. And again, if you have any interest in presenting or know someone who would like to, please go ahead and send that information their way. Any questions for me? Okay. Oh, Boshin.
So not a question for you, but it is rare that we have, Eric with the city of Phoenix, just wondering if he has any announcements.
I don't, but thank you, Boshin, for the opportunity. No, I saw, because obviously the city of Phoenix has our liaison meeting, so I've decided as I can to pop in to just kind of see what's going on, to kind of make sure that we know what's kind of going on kind of peripherally around the city of Phoenix. So, but no, good presentation today, guys. It was good information. So thank you.
It's a pleasure having you join, Eric. Yes. Thank you, TC. Thank you, Robbie, for that presentation. Anthony and Steve on the legislature update, and everybody who attended. I saw some names that I didn't recognize. So please know that our next meeting is April 6th at 8 a.m. either online or in the ACEC office. And either one is great. I've been in the office. It's a nice venue to be there, and they do have breakfast items available. Usually, at least when I'm there, they do. I shouldn't speak.
Well, all we need is 12, and then we can provide you with bacon, which I know everybody is certainly missing. So when you register, just check whether you're coming virtually or in person, so we have a count. And if I have a head count, I promise you bacon.
All right, good. As we transition from spring into summer, from Phoenix climate perspective, be careful out on the streets. Appreciate you all, and be safe. Thank you and goodbye.